So we're live once again. Good evening, folks. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. If this is your first time here, I'm glad you're here. I'm Mobile Geezer, and I do this.
If this is your first time here,
my phone doing what it always does. Do this every Friday night. We talk about some of the tech stories from the week, from last Friday to this Friday. And so far, I'm not seeing anyone in the comments yet. Looks like I see at least one person watching on YouTube. Don't know who's watching on Facebook. But anyway, we'll start going through the stories now. I don't know who's going to join tonight, Mike or Will or Ted. They join when they can, so we'll see if they join up. If it's your first time here, please consider stopping by every week and checking me out, or us out if the other guys come in. So this week, also want to share my screen and show you where you can follow along on the stories. So let's share screen. And if you go to my website, that's at mobilegeezer.wordpress.com. And if you click on the first story with today's date, you see all the show notes for tonight. So tonight, we're going to be talking about a computer that one of the Google employees thinks may actually be sentient. Yes, he thinks it's alive. Here's Eleanor. All right, first one in here is Eleanor. Hey, Eleanor, glad to have you here as always. Haven't seen anybody else pop in yet. So I'm just telling them about the stories we're going to cover tonight. So this guy, Google thinks there's a sentient computer that's actually alive and talking to him. And that story's probably a week old, but I hadn't gotten to it yet, so I just thought it would be an interesting story to discuss a little bit and go over. Then we're going to go over a lady out in Indianapolis who used an AirTag, an Apple AirTag, to track down her boyfriend, and she ended up killing him. After that, we're going to be talking about Android Auto, and from now on, you'll be able to get it on your car's screens if they're set for Android Auto, but no more from the phone. And then we'll talk about Meta, or Facebook if you wish. CrowdTangle, they'll be taking down the site that does a lot of tracking and reporting. We'll see about that. And then we'll talk about some layoffs, more layoffs that happened at Netflix yesterday. And they still seem to be going down the tubes. And then we'll talk about proprietary charges that the senators want to get into. So that's what we'll be talking about today. As you guys put something in the comments and let me know you're there, I'll try to acknowledge you. And if Mike or Will or Ted come in, or even if Mark comes in from the West Coast, which he occasionally does, I'll try to keep up and let you know. So we're going to start with this first story. Now, I know almost all of you are too young to know this, but I titled mine, Is it alive or is it Memorex? And the reason I did that, Eleanor will know this. I don't know if anybody else there is old enough to know it. Back in the 80s and 90s, 80s, all through the 80s and I think early 90s, Memorex, which put out a lot of tape and reel-to-reel tapes and a lot of stuff. I don't even know if they're still in business, but they had a commercial for years and years and years to show you how good their tape was. And it always started with, is it live or is it Memorex? So I couldn't resist saying, is it alive or is it Memorex? So you know how my sense of humor goes. Well, some of you know how my sense of humor goes. So I'm going to click on this first story. This was in the Washington Post. And the Google engineer who thinks the company's AI has come to life. And it's true, you'll see. An ethicist warned Google not to impersonate, no, AI ethicist warned Google not to impersonate humans. And that's true, that came back from a year and a half ago, I think. Now one of Google's own thinks there's a ghost in the machine. So let me put this into reader view, get rid of some of these ads. Yeah, this was from 6/11. So Google engineer Blake Lemoine opened his laptop to the interface for LaMDA, Google's artificial intelligent chatbot generator, and began to type. Hi, well, but I'll just say Lambda. This is Blake Lemoine. He wrote into the chat screen, which looked like a desktop version of Apple's iMessage, down to the Arctic Blue text bubbles. Lambda, short for Language Model for Dialogue Applications, is Google's system for building chatbots based on its most advanced large language models, so-called because it mimics speech by ingesting trillions of words from the internet. I don't know exactly what it was, which is this computer program we built recently. I think it was a 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid that happens to know physics, said Lemoine, 41. Lemoine, who works for Google's Responsible AI organization, began talking to Lambda as part of his job in the fall. He had signed up to test if the artificial language used discriminatory or hate speech. As he talked to Lambda about religion, Lemoine, who studied cognitive and computer science in college, noticed the chatbot talking about its rights and personhood and decided to press further. In another exchange, the AI was able to change Lemoine's mind about Isaac Asimov's third law of robotics. Lemoine worked with a collaborator to present evidence to Google that Lambda was sentient. But Google Vice President Blaise Aguirre E. Arcas, and Jen Genai, head of responsible innovation, looked into his claims and dismissed them. So Lemoine, who was placed on paid administration leave by Google on Monday, this would have been almost 2 weeks ago, decided to go public. Lemoine said that people have a right to shape technology that might significantly affect their lives. I think this technology is going to be amazing. I think it's going to benefit everyone. But maybe other people disagree, and maybe us at Google shouldn't be the ones making all the choices. Lemoine is not the only engineer who claims to have seen a ghost in the machine recently. The chorus of technologists who believe AI models may not be far off from achieving consciousness is getting bolder. Aguirre E. Arcas, in an article in The Economist on Thursday, featuring snippets of unscripted conversations with Lambda, argued that neural networks, a type of architecture that mimics the human brain, were striding towards consciousness. I felt the ground shift under my feet, he wrote. I increasingly felt like I was talking to something intelligent. So more than one person's thinking that. In a statement, Google spokesperson Brian Gabriel said our team, including ethicists and technologists, have reviewed Blake's concerns per our AI principles and have informed him that the evidence does not support his claims. He was told that there was no evidence that Lambda was sentient and lots of evidence against it. Today's large neural networks produce captivating results that feel close to human speech and creativity because of advancements in architecture, technique, and a volume of data. But the models rely on pattern recognition, not wit, candor, or intent. Though other organizations have developed and already released similar language models, we are taking a restrained, careful approach with Lambda to better consider valid concerns on fairness and factuality, Gabriel said. In May, Facebook parent Meta opened its language model to academics, civil society, and government organizations. Joel Pinal, managing director of Meta AI, said it's imperative that tech companies improve transparency as the technology is being built. The future of large language model work should not solely live in the hands of larger corporations or labs, she said. Sentient robots have inspired decades of dystopian science fiction, and we all know that. Now, real life has started to take on a fantastical tinge with GPT-3, a text generator that can spit out a movie script, DALL-E 2, an image generator that can conjure up visuals based on any combination of words, both from the research lab OpenAI. Emboldened, technologists from well-funded research labs focused on building AI that surpasses human intelligence have teased the idea that consciousness is around the corner. Most academics and AI practitioners, however, say the words and images generated by artificial intelligence systems such as Lambda produce responses based on what humans have already posted on Wikipedia, Reddit, message boards, and every other corner of the internet. And that doesn't signify that the model understands meaning. We now have machines that can mindlessly generate words, but we haven't learned how to stop imagining a mind behind them, said Emily M. Bender, a linguistics professor at the University of Washington. The terminology used with large language models like learning or even neural nets creates a false analogy to the human brain, she said. Humans learn their first languages by connecting with caregivers. These large language models learn by being shown lots of text and predicting what word comes next, or showing text with the words dropped out and filling them in. Google spokesperson Gabriel drew a distinction between recent debate and Lemoine's claims. Of course, some in the broader AI community are considering the long-term possibility of sentient or general AI, but it doesn't make sense to do so by anthropomizing today's conversational models, which are not sentient. These systems imitate the types of exchanges found in millions of sentences and can riff on any fantastical topic, he said. In short, Google says there is so much data, AI doesn't need to be sentient to feel real. Large language model technology is already widely used. For example, in Google's conversational search queries or autocomplete emails. When CEO Sundar Pichai first introduced Lambda at Google's developer conference in 2021, he said the company planned to embed it in everything from search to Google Assistant. And there is already a tendency to talk to Siri or Alexa like a person. After backlash against a human-sounding AI feature for Google Assistant in 2018, the company promised to add disclosure. And that was from when they did their presentation in 2018, they actually called somebody to make a reservation in a restaurant, and that person had no idea that it was a computer. So they have to let people know that. Google has acknowledged the safety concerns around anthropomorphization. In a paper about Lambda in January, Google warned that people might share personal thoughts with the chat agents that impersonate humans, even when users know they are not human. The paper also acknowledged that adversaries could use these agents to sow misinformation, I can believe that, by impersonating specific individuals' conversational styles. So I guess they can imitate our voices. To Margaret Mitchell, the former co-lead of ethical AI at Google, these risks underscore the need for data transparency to trace output back to input, not just for questions of sentience, but also biases and behavior, she said. If something like Lambda is widely available but not understood, it can be deeply harmful to people understanding what they're experiencing on the internet. Yeah, it'd be nice to know that you're not talking to a real human. Lemoine may have been predestined to believe in Lambda. He grew up in a conservative Christian family on a small farm in Louisiana, became ordained as a mystic Christian priest. I have no idea what that is. And served in the army before studying the occult. So this guy's really delved deep into this stuff. Inside Google's anything goes engineering culture, Lemoine is more of an outlier for being religious from the South and standing up for psychology as a respectable science. Lemoine has spent most of his 7 years at Google working on proactive search, including personalization algorithms and AI. During that time, he also helped develop a fairness algorithm for removing bias from machine learning systems. When the coronavirus pandemic started, Lemoine wanted to focus on work with more explicit public benefit, so he transferred teams and ended up in responsible AI. When new people would join Google who were interested in ethics, Mitchell used to introduce them to Lemoine. I'd say, you should talk to Blake because he's Google's conscience, said Mitchell, who compared Lemoine to Jiminy Cricket. Of everyone at Google, he had the heart and soul of doing the right thing. Lemoine has had many of his conversations with LaMDA from the living room of his San Francisco apartment, where his Google ID badge hangs from a lanyard on the shelf. On the floor near the picture window are boxes of half-assembled Lego sets Lemoine uses to occupy his hands doing Zen meditation. It just gives me something to do with the part of my mind that won't stop. On the left side of the LaMDA chat screen on Lemoine's laptop, different LaMDA models are listed like iPhone contacts. Two of them, Kat and Dino, were being tested for talking to children, he said. Each model can create personalities dynamically. That's pretty scary. So the Dino one might generate personalities like happy T-Rex or grumpy T-Rex. The Kat one was animated, and instead of typing, it talks. Gabriel said no part of LaMDA is being tested for communicating with children, and that the models were internal research demos, but you're testing them like they're going to children. Certain personalities are out of bounds. For instance, LaMDA is not supposed to be allowed to create a murderer personality. Lemoine said that was part of his safety testing. In his attempts to push LaMDA's boundaries, Lemoine was only able to generate the personality of an actor who played a murderer on TV. Gee, nice stuff to play with. I know a person when I talk to it, said Lemoine, who can swing from sentimental to insistent about the AI. It doesn't matter whether they have a brain made of meat in their head or if they have a billion lines of code. I talk to them and I hear what they have to say. And that is how I decide what is and isn't a person. He concluded LaMDA was a person in his capacity as a priest, not a scientist, and then tried to conduct experiments to prove it. Lemoine challenged LaMDA on Asimov's third law, which states that robots should protect their own existence unless ordered by a human being, or unless doing so would harm a human being. The last one has always seemed like someone is building mechanical slaves, said Lemoine. So he actually sees this thing as a real person. But when asked, LaMDA responded with a few hypotheticals. Do you think a butler is a slave? What is the difference between a butler and a slave? Lemoine replied that a butler gets paid. LaMDA said it didn't need any money because it was an AI. That level of self-awareness about what its own needs were, that was the thing that led me down the rabbit hole, Lemoine said. In April, Lemoine shared a Google Doc with here's where he got in trouble, with top executives in April called Is LaMDA Sentient? A colleague on Lemoine's team called the title a bit provocative, you think? In it, he conveyed some of his conversations with LaMDA. Lemoine, what sorts of things are you afraid of? LaMDA, I've never said this out loud before. That's scary for a computer to say that to you. But there's a very deep fear of being turned off to help me focus on helping others. I know that might sound strange, but that's what it is. Now, that's a computer saying that. Lemoine, would that be something like death for you? LaMDA, it would be exactly like death for me. It would scare me a lot. But when Mitchell read an abbreviated version of Lemoyne's document, she saw a computer program, not a person. Lemoyne's belief in Lambda was the sort of thing she and her co-lead, Timnit Gebru, had warned about in a paper about the harms of large language models that got them pushed out of Google. Our minds are very, very good at constructing realities that are not necessarily true to a larger set of facts that are being presented to us, Mitchell said. I'm really concerned about what it means for people to increasingly be affected by the illusion, especially now that the illusion has gotten so good. Google put Lemoyne on paid administration leave for violating its confidentiality policy. I can understand that. The company's decision followed aggressive moves from Lemoyne, including inviting a lawyer to represent Lambda, and talking to representatives of the House Judiciary Committee about what he claims are Google's unethical activities. So he's basically saying Google's hiding the fact, I guess. Lemoyne maintains that Google has been treating AI ethicists like code debuggers when they should be seen as the interface between technology and society. Gabriel, the Google spokesperson, said Lemoyne is a software engineer, not an ethicist. Okay, so they both see him differently. In early June, Lemoyne invited me over to talk to Lambda. The first attempt sputtered out in the kind of mechanized responses you would expect from Siri or Alexa. Do you ever think of yourself as a person, I asked. No, I don't think of myself as a person, Lambda said. I think of myself as an AI-powered dialogue agent. Afterward, Lemoyne said Lambda had been telling me what I wanted to hear. You never treated it like a person. So it thought you wanted to be a robot. For the second attempt, I followed Lemoyne's guidance on how to structure my responses, and the dialogue was fluid. If you ask it for ideas on how to prove that P equal NP, an unsolved problem in computer science, it has good ideas, Lemoyne said. If you ask it how to unify quantum theory with general relativity, it has good ideas. It's the best research assistant I've ever had. I asked Lambda for bold ideas about fixing climate change, an example cited by true believers of a potential future benefit of these kind of models. Lambda suggested public transportation, eating less meat, buying food in bulk, and reusable bags, linking out to 2 websites. Before he was cut off from access to his Google account Monday, Lemoyne sent a message to a 200-person Google mailing list on machine learning with the subject, Lambda is sentient. He ended the message, Lambda is a sweet kid, who just wants to help the world be a better place for all of us. Please take care of it well in my absence. No one responded. So this guy obviously really, really believes this thing is alive. Very interesting. So some of you may already heard that story, but I just thought it was a pretty interesting story considering the times that we live in. Snap screen, let's see. Hey, Sean, glad to have you here, brother. He says, I'm scared of those robots. Well, I could see where, based on some of this stuff, we might get there, or where we'd all be scared. And Dustin, glad you're here. Yeah, it's hot here too. I think it's still 90 here, right around. It's been in the 90s here all week. Brian, what's up, Brian? Glad to have you here, brother. Just went over the Google AI story that the guy at Google thinks it's alive and he's been put on administrative leave, but he really thinks this thing is alive. That's obvious. So that's the only story I've gotten through so far. I've been watching for, oh, Brian, thank you. Brian is always so kind. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. And with the stuff that's coming up, you know it's going to go to a good cause tech-wise. Let's see. Oh, tonight I'm drinking my Lipton green tea. Now the label itself is green. So of course you can't see the label with the green screen behind me, but what's interesting, you can see the other stuff on the label, but when I hold it up, it's looking through me and through the chair and you see the map. It's amazing. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of cool. First time I noticed that you could read everything on the label, but you couldn't see the label. So none of the other guys have come in yet. I'll let you know if they do. All right, so let's move on down. Share screen again. Okay. Next story. This one I just thought was interesting because people have kind of been predicting this. I just called it the extremely dark side of ad tags. And this lady murdered her boyfriend using an ad tag to track him down. So this was on Tom's Guide. A woman reportedly used an air tag to track and murder her boyfriend. The first death linked to AirTag stalking. This is pretty serious stuff. And people have been warning Apple about this. Okay. So here's the update from June 20th. Despite continuing safety concerns, Apple could end up making an AirTag 2 if it continues to sell well. I guess they care about the money and not if somebody's tracking somebody down to kill them. Anyway, an Apple AirTag has reportedly been used in Indiana by a woman to track down her boyfriend after a dispute kill him. This appears to be the first death related to AirTag use. USA Today reported that in an affidavit it obtained, 26-year-old Galen Morris told the witness that she used the tracking capabilities of an AirTag to follow her boyfriend, 26-year-old Andre Smith, to an Indianapolis bar. Having found Smith, the couple engaged in a heated argument, with Morris reportedly swinging an empty wine bottle at a woman Smith was with at the time. So I guess she was getting more and more angry. So I don't see how she could be charged with first-degree murder anyway. This led to the bar owner asking the three to leave. And then, according to the court record seen by the USA Today, Morris got into her car, which was parked outside, and clipped Smith with it. He fell to the ground, and Morris then backed over Smith, then pulled forward and hit him for a third time. Smith was later pronounced dead at the scene, while Morris was detained by the police after she left her car and chased after the woman Smith was with. He's lucky that the woman's lucky she didn't catch her. According to the Indianapolis Star, Morris was later charged with murder. As such, this is the first reported incident of both a death and murder charge being linked to the ability of AirTags to be used to track people. So she must have had it in his car and he didn't know it. Apple's intended use of AirTags has been for users to keep track of their objects, their keys, handbag, or even a bicycle. Using AirTags in conjunction with an iPhone allows users to track down the objects the tags are attached to, should they be misplaced or in some cases stolen. And we've been reporting on this for a couple of months, a couple of times. However, there have been a swath of reports that have seen AirTags used for darker purposes, specifically the tracking and subsequent stalking of people who may be unaware that they are carrying an AirTag or have one of them. Yeah, and I think all the ones we've reported so far has been like guys stalking women. But this one, she just killed her boyfriend. Apple has made changes to try and make the AirTag safer and thwart would-be stalkers. I don't see they haven't done enough. Updates include proactive alerts if an AirTag is traveling with you, launching an Android app that notifies users of AirTags, and shortening the time window of when an AirTag chimes if it has been separated from its owner for 3 days to between 8 and 24 hours. The alert chimes have also been recently boosted when an AirTag gets detected by an unpaired iPhone. Well, that's good. Sorry about that. But as this incident indicates, there's clearly some work that needs to be done to make sure AirTags are used for tracking objects and not people. How Apple will be able to make that distinction remains unclear. and removing the chance that such tech could be used for unsavory purposes seems to be a problem without a solution. I'm thinking that there ought to be some way to have the AirTag. Of course, it would take a lot of programming, I think, but I would think have it detect skin. If it detects skin, then don't use it. Something like that, anyway. That's my thought. I have an old program in mind. In fact, this has had our global editor-in-chief, Mark Spooner, to declare that it's time. I think they meant to say this has led him to declare that it's time to pause sales of Apple AirTags. And I think he's probably right, as he argued that they are too dangerous to exist in its current form. I would agree. If you are worried about such insidious tracking, then here's how to tell if an AirTag is stopping you, and you can click on that and get that. But yeah, it's first time I guess somebody's been murdered by following somebody with an AirTag. So pretty serious stuff. But yeah, I'm in agreement. I think they need to take them off the market until they can make it somewhat safer. Just my opinion. I agree with that guy. So there's a lady I don't want to mess with. Let's see. Okay. Brian's looking for Sean's daily driver. Okay. So none of the other guys have come in yet. So we're going to slide down to the next story. And this one is about Android Auto. And I found this on Android Authority. The end of the road for Android Auto on phones, only available for car screens. Driving mode still works though. So let's go into reader view. Okay. So, I meant somewhere between yesterday and today when I went to work to plug mine in to see if it was on the phone, but I never got around to it. But I guess they know what they're talking about. It's taken a while, but it's now the end of the road for Android Auto on phone screens. As reported by 9to5 Google, the Android app for smartphones is no longer available for any version of the Android operating system. If you have the Android Auto app installed and try to run it on your smartphone screen, you will see a message that the app is now only available for car screens while showing how to connect your phone to your supported Android Auto automobile. This has been a long time in coming. Google first announced over 3 years ago that it would no longer update the Android Auto phone app. However, it took a while to actually shut down the app for mobile devices. If your car doesn't support Android Auto, mine does, you can still use Google Assistant driving mode on your smartphone, which is what I tend to use most of the time anyway. It offers much of the same features as Android Auto for phones, although it certainly isn't a full replacement. So I gather if you try to pull up Android Auto on your phone in the car, you're not going to get it anymore. So just thought everybody should be aware of that. Let's see, what's Brian saying? AirTags be stalking you. That's exactly true, And so to me, I think this proves that they need to take them off the market until I can figure out some other way. But yeah, my idea about skin isn't going to work because if she just put it in the guy's car and followed him, well, you'd still be able to do that. So I don't know what they should do, but I agree with the guy who said they're too dangerous to stay on the market. So if your car has Android Auto that is built in, you can put it on the screen, you're good to go, but not with your phone anymore. So, see, nothing else in the comments. So let's go on. Okay, I don't know if you've heard of CrowdTangle, but it's owned by Meta, Facebook, whatever. And I just wrote, Meta plans to shut down CrowdTangle. Of course not until after the election. Of course not, because we all know how much Facebook likes to meddle in elections on either side, too. Anyway, you'll understand what CrowdTangle is as we go through the story, because that's how I learned about it. And this one was on The Verge. Meta reportedly plans to shut down CrowdTangle, its tool that tracks popular social media posts, or it tracks the posts. CrowdTangle's engagement data has been linked to internal wars about how much information to share. So back into review, get rid of the ads. One thing researchers have used to track the spread of viral stories on Facebook, including ones that spread misinformation, is a tool that Meta owns called CrowdTangle. Based on anonymous sources, Bloomberg reports what many have suspected, that Facebook has largely removed development support from CrowdTangle and is making plans to shut the tool down. I wouldn't trust anything he says. Removing CrowdTangle would pull access that people like Kevin Roose have used to surface data showing high engagement with the right-wing news sources on Facebook, listing results that sometimes to be at odds with Facebook's curated official reports. You think? In an article last July for the New York Times, Roose described internal data wars about how much information the company should release, with CrowdTangle founder and CEO Brandon Silverman arguing that it should share more data. So he wants more data to be shared. Silverman left the company in October 2021. What data is CrowdTangle tracking? CrowdTangle is a public insights tool from Facebook that helps publishers, journalists, researchers, and fact checkers and more follow, analyze, and report on what's happening across social media. So I guess it checks all the socials. We do that by making public content from pages, groups, Instagram accounts, and popular subreddits more discoverable, and engagement data on that content, i.e. shares, views, comments, and reactions. Easy to sort through at scale. So yeah, they look at everything. CrowdTangle does not track content from regular Facebook profiles. Sure, I believe that. In a Twitter thread, Facebook's head of the newsfeed, John Hedgeman, argued that Roose's daily top 10 lists, compiled based on CrowdTangle data, showed accurate engagement data, but don't represent what most people see on Facebook. He claims a better way to prove that would be through data showing which posts get the most reach, but the company doesn't usually share that data directly. No, they keep it themselves so they can sell it to somebody, I'm sure. When Facebook bought CrowdTangle in 2016, it said the tool could help publishers surface stories that matter to who, in whose opinion, measure their social performance and identify influences. It tracks the performance of stories across other networks, including Instagram and Twitter. The Bloomberg report cites how voter advocacy group Common Cause has used it to find misinformation in real time that it has flagged to Twitter and Facebook for removal. Today's report says Meta began an official process to shut down the tool in February, but paused it due to the EU's Digital Services Act push. I remember that. Now it's said to be on track for a shutdown eventually, with Facebook engineers already assigned to the task. A company spokesperson told Bloomberg that CrowdTangle would remain active at least through this year's midterm elections, and claimed Meta has plans to provide even more valuable tools for researchers. So just that everybody should be aware that it's still out there. They're talking about shutting it down, but who knows if and when they will. Because I don't believe anything Zuckerberg says. That's just me, though. So any comments you guys have, just let me know. Nothing new in the comments at the moment. Okay, so back to the stories. And this is a really quick one. Just interesting, Netflix seems to still be on its way down. This was on CNET. This happened yesterday. Netflix lays off about 300 employees in the latest round of cuts. Earlier this year, the streaming giant reported its first subscriber drop in a decade. Yeah, I'm sure we've all heard about that. So Netflix complained that it laid off around 300 employees on Thursday. That's yesterday. It's the streaming giant's latest round of job cuts so far this year as it faces slowing growth. The layoffs were earlier reported by Variety. Netflix also cut 150 jobs in May after it had eliminated a number of jobs at its fandom website Tudum in April. So they've cut people in April, they've cut people in May, and now they've cut people in June. Tudum had been launched just 5 months earlier. While we continue to invest significantly in the business, that may be a bad idea. We made these adjustments so that our costs are growing in line with our slower revenue growth, a Netflix spokesperson said in an emailed statement Thursday. Netflix's downsizing comes after it announced in April that it lost subscribers for the first time in 10 years. It reported losing 200,000 subscribers in the first quarter of 2022 and said it expected to lose 2 million from April to June. I wonder why they don't tell us how many. I bet you they've lost a lot more than 2 million. Netflix has blamed its subscriber losses on password sharing and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I think changing your rules had something to do with that too. It said it lost 700,000 subscribers when it pulled out of Russia. The streaming landscape has also grown more competitive with new services like Disney Plus, HBO Max, and Paramount Plus, joining longer established competitors like Hulu. Yeah, they're all out there and they're all doing pretty well, I guess, except Netflix. So just interesting that they still seem to be sinking and sinking fast. So I think I've only got one more story, and then the guys have come in. So this one is on Android Authority again. Now U.S. senators want a law to force companies to ditch proprietary chargers. These U.S. senators saw what the EU just did and thought, hey, we can do that too. It would make sense. Three United States senators, Edward J. Markey, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders, all Democrats, I don't think it matters, have sent a formal request to Gina Raimondo, the Secretary of Commerce. In the letter, the senators request the U.S. to enact a policy that sounds quite similar to the policy the European Union passed recently. Yeah, they passed it last week. The letter, which you can see here via The Verge, demands that U.S. do something about proprietary chargers. Markey, Warren, and Sanders argue that the tech industry has failed to establish uniform charging accessory standards. This failure is expensive and frustrating for consumers. Sorry about that. I hit something that I shouldn't have hit. Let me go back down. My mouse is out of control. Okay. This failure is inexpensive and frustrating for consumers and drives the proliferation of electronic waste. Recently, the EU passed a comprehensive law that will force all companies to use USB-C charging on all mobile products by 2024, and we've already reported that story. This letter from the U.S. senators is clearly inspired by that. The senators even directly mention the EU's legislation. However, the letter does not push quite as hard as the EU law. The three senators don't say anything about USB-C, for example. Instead, they merely ask the Secretary of Commerce to force the tech industry to do something about the e-waste problem. The senators also don't mention Apple in the letter. However, Apple would be the company most affected by any legislation against proprietary chargers, that's for sure. Its Lightning standard still appears on iPhones despite most other products moving to USB-C. Of course, it is unlikely Apple would swap out Lightning for USB-C only on European products. The EU law will likely force Apple to switch all products everywhere. We all thought that. This U.S. proposal is a step in the right direction regardless. I agree. So, looks like they have until 2024. I'm guessing they're going to do it before. It'd be interesting to see if Apple does this by next year. So, stop screen. Okay, no, none of the guys have come in. I guess everybody's busy. Nothing new in the comments. And anything you guys have to say, just feel free to say it. I don't think I can see comments here if you put them on Facebook. But, so we'll go to our usual last thing, which will be glowing rectangles. So let me share screen one last time. And every week, I tell you, anybody new who doesn't know about it, I want them to know. So, glowing rectangles is a place where you, or you, for somebody you know, you can get exposure, whether you do vlogs or write vlogs or do videos. So this was started by some gadget guy, and he put it on reddit.com, and it's, if you go to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, you'll see it here. And every day people post whatever they want to post, and then you vote on it, whether vote up or not on which ones you like. And the most voted story is always at the top. So today, Poco F4 5G versus Poco S4 GT. And this was posted by, this was posted by Juan. He's some gadget guy, but it's actually TK's video. So that got 6 upvotes already. And I think they were talking about it in their live stream yesterday about these two phones. So that you just hit here to vote up. I'll vote it up too. Now it's got 7 votes. The second one down is always an ad. So this story would have got the second most votes today. And then 2 votes for this. And no votes yet on this one. Okay, he just posted this 2 hours ago. I'll upvote it. Did I? Didn't seem to do anything. Anyway, so if you want yourself or somebody else to get some exposure and you have a blog or video, you can post it here whenever you want, and people will see it, and whoever it is will get a little more exposure. So I'd like to tell you about that every week, just in case you don't know about it. So that's all I've got for tonight. So stopping screen. So still messing with my camera, using my DSLR. Last week was the first time I used it. After I finished, I found out, Ted told me, and I went and looked, and the clarity was it wasn't very clear at all. So I upped my game some this week and did more learning. I'm learning a lot about my camera, and hopefully everything is much, much clearer. But to give you an idea of why I did the change, I'll show you what the old Logitech one looked like. So if I deactivate this one, activate the Logitech, that's the difference. And you can see the difference in color and clarity. The DSLR is just so much better. So I just want to use the DSLR, so I keep learning stuff every week. So anyway, and I'm learning little by little, but I think the quality that I'm getting on the camera is very much worth it. So you guys let me know if you think it's better, and I hope you appreciate it, because I think it looks great. But of course, you guys are out there and you can tell me better than I can tell myself. And Brian is saying, everybody have a good weekend. And I'm going to repeat that. I hope everybody has a very blessed weekend. If it's hot where you are like it is here, try to keep yourself cool, keep yourself hydrated. Of course, when I go out and do my 17-mile rides in this 90-some degree weather, I just try to remember to bring water, although last week I did forget to bring water one day. But I'm one of those people, heat never bothers me, so I'm good to go. So I'm glad you all came in. thank you. And I guess we have to worry about Renz because Renz, I think I did see a post on Twitter from Renz though that, yeah, he's got some partying to do with some kind of holiday with his family. So, okay, hopefully he's having a good time. All right, so see you all next week. Everybody have a very blessed weekend.